Have you ever had fried ribs? Well, we know that that's not the healthiest way to go, but baby, we are going there today. So, as always, you just want to inspect your meat and you can just see how much prettier these ribs are now that they've been cleaned. The meat is white and fleshy looking. Hey, it's pork, the other white meat. We're taking the paper towel and we're dabbing them dry. We always want to do that anytime we are getting ready to season our meat, unless there is a wet marinade or some form of wet seasoning. That's the only time your meat should be wet. Otherwise, you want to dab it dry, and that helps the seasoning to adhere. Now, as you can see, I'm running very low on mustard, but I had to do whatever it took to get the rest of that mustard out. I would have cut that bottle in half if I had to. Because y'all, it is two things. Now you heard it here at Keisha's Crumbs. It's two things, crumb catchers, you always want to put mustard on. Especially when you're frying it. Two things is pork, fried pork, and fried fish. Never go without yellow mustard on your fried pork and your fried fish. It just makes a world of difference. So again, I'm going in with my Ooey KG artisan seasoning first. And then I'm going in with some swine seasoning. And then I'm going in with just a little kosher salt. Because remember, my seasoning is very, very low on salt. Sometimes you can go to these stores when you can see that the ribs on sale in the ads. You go to the stores and the ribs are more bony than anything. So I really like a St. Louis style rib better than a baby back, because the St. Louis style is just more likely to have an ample amount of meat. Whereas sometimes you can get baby back ribs and they are super bony. They're flavorful because that bone in that baby back is flavorful, but they are super bony. But you can see how thick these St. Louis style ribs are. So I was very pleased with that. And I normally cut them up before I season them. I decided a little later that I was going to fry them, and that's why I'm cutting them up at this point. But if you're going to fry your ribs, definitely go ahead and cut your ribs down. I don't have, we're not using the cutting board. This is the way you preserve dishes, y'all. I'm going to cut them right here in this bowl that we have cleaned and seasoned them in. So we don't have to mess up our cutting board. But as you can see, you just run the knife between each rib. Once you turn the ribs on the back, you'll be able to see where those rib bones run. And you just slice down alongside parallel with each bone. And that's how you come out with your ribs. Cut away from yourself, of course. So now we have them all seasoned up, and I'm just going to go back over with a little more seasoning so the meat that is in between each rib, or that was in between each rib, is now exposed and it can get some seasoning. I'm really massaging to the meat to make sure that that mustard gets in there, because that mustard and this seasoning will taste so delicious. Okay, so let's continue to get these ready for the oil. All right, here's your crumb number 2. I'm dropping crumbs. Guess what we're going to fry this in? Fish fry, y'all. It is perfectly okay to fry chicken or pork in fish fry, especially when it's packaged like this. And the reason is because, y'all, the fish fry is primarily cornmeal, but it has flour in it. And the chicken fry is primarily flour, but it has meal in it. So either way, you have a combination of seasoned cornmeal and flour that make up these coating mixtures, okay? And if you're in the mood for just an extra crunch, this is a guaranteed way to get a crunch on your chicken and on your pork. Use fish fry. Now, I'm using the term fish fry because I'm talking about the packaged mixes that you buy in stores. But you will find that even when people make up their own batter at home for chicken, people do it all the time. They'll mix in some meal with their flour because the meal has the coarseness. Hence, once it hits that hot oil, that's where your crunch comes from. Okay? So just remember that. If you've never tried it before, try it. The next time you fry some chicken or some pork, just add a little cornmeal to the mix. So I have plenty of fish fry here. My mustard's on there. I have lemon in my fish fry. So that lemon and that mustard just works so well together. It's the same combination I use on my fish. And what you see me doing is picking up each individual rib and I'm pressing on it. Because these ribs are so meaty and thick, they have, the grain running through the meat. I want to make sure that those grains are coated. I want morsels of this delicious breading on every crack and crevice of this pork. Okay, this very clean and well seasoned pork. We want this fry to come out crispy, crunchy. We want it to be delicious. So I pressed the fish fry into the pork to make sure that I had that first coating well adhered. But then you still want there to be just some loose meal on there as well. You're going to shake off the excess. But my point is, don't press all of your batter in and then just fry it like that because you'll have a very flat coating. You want to press it in to make sure that it gets in all the cracks and crevices. And then you take your hand and kind of just stir it up through the meal and the fish fry again so that you will have a fluffier coating. Now here, my oil could stand to be a tad bit hotter. Actually, I would say get your oil up between 320 and 350. But either way, y'all, if you ever are frying your chicken or fish or pork and you see that it's not quite hot enough, you just kind of need to give it some time before you drop your next piece in. Because every piece of raw meat that you put into the oil is going to bring the temperature down. So you're giving it a few seconds in between to maintain temp and to come back up to temp before you put the other piece of meat in there. Also, remember to put the meat in there away from yourself. You can also use tongs. So let's go ahead and let this grease get hot. Let this oil get hot and do its thing. Oh, yes. Okay, we have about a 6 to 8 minute delay, and you can see how that blood has risen to the top. Y'all, I did not move the ribs after you initially saw me put them in there. I don't stir them around. I don't push them around. I don't poke and prod at them. That's a mistake that I even see seasoned cooks make, especially online, all the time. I think people have gotten so acclimated to deep frying everything where they don't have to touch it or manipulate it at all that you forget when it's in a pan and you put it down, the grease is at the temp it should be at. You let it sit because that crust or that breading inside that oil sitting in one spot unmoved is what's going to create your great crust. When you move it around in the oil, you're essentially washing or pushing some of the breading off of the meat. So you leave it alone. You don't have to move it for any reason. It doesn't need to be moved in order to help it get done. As a matter of fact, that's another rule of thumb I have, whether I'm frying chicken, fish, pork. Once you put it in that oil, you pretty much are going to let the meat cook completely on one side. And then by the time I get ready to turn it, when I do take my tongs, not a fork, to poke in it and let all those good juices out. But when I take my tongs and turn the meat over, I'm basically just turning it over for color. I'm just browning it on the other side because I let that meat stay in place in that oil until I think it's primarily done before I even flip it over. I definitely don't touch it, I don't move it around, and I don't poke and prod it with a fork, okay? Look at how beautiful these ribs are, y'all. Oh my goodness. I've had a taste for fried pork chops for so long. The next time you have a hankering for fried pork chops and you've never had fried ribs before, do yourself a favor. Get yourself a slab of ribs. It doesn't matter, preferably. But I've fried spare ribs, I've fried St. Louis, and I fried baby backs, honestly. The spare ribs take a little longer to get done because of the gristle and that whole rib tip portion that runs across the top. So if you're doing it for the first time, I would say fry up some St. Louis style or baby backs. But look at how beautiful these turned out. That's all you have to do is clean those ribs, cut them down, throw it out with some packaged fish or chicken fry. There's nothing wrong with that. See, a lot of times people are hesitant to go in the kitchen because they feel like it's all or nothing. Cooking is not an all or nothing type of game. You do want to move to trying to make as much homemade food as possible using your own homemade ingredients, but I like to encourage people to get in the kitchen first. If you don't hardly ever get in the kitchen or you don't hardly ever cook, then when you are ready to get in there, give yourself some grace. Use a packaged fish fry or chicken fry. Don't try to make that part from scratch. It's okay to use some canned or jarred things when you're in the kitchen because it's better for some of it to be home cooked than none of it. I can assure you that. So one of my favorite things that I love to do, and I would suggest that you try this as well, anytime I fry ribs, I love making a barbecue sauce to drizzle over the rib. It's just something about that crispiness on the ribs. And then you're going to have a sweet, sticky barbecue sauce. You're not going to soak the ribs because you want to maintain the integrity of that crunch and the crispiness. But you're going to just drizzle the barbecue sauce over the ribs so that it has that sweetness, it's sticky, and it is just good. You bite down into that tender rib. It is delicious. Don't drizzle just the barbecue sauce by itself. You want it to be on the thinner side. So take whatever bottle of barbecue sauce you have and squeeze some honey in it. You know how much honey you like in your sauce. Put you some honey in it. Put some chili flakes if you like chili flakes. Like, jazz it up. You can put a splash of vinegar in it. And take your fork and mix it up really good. Taste it with your finger. Make sure you like the flavor of it. And then drizzle it over your ribs. Oh my goodness. You are talking about delicious. It's to die for. So I hope that this has encouraged you not only to get in your kitchen, but to make something great. Get you a bag of chicken fry or fish fry. Make sure you have some yellow mustard on hand. If you can get that silver skin off, that is wonderful. If you can't, it is not a deal breaker. Cut your ribs, slice them up between the bones, and put that mustard on them. Put your breading on it and fry it in between 320 and 350 degrees. If you want your ribs super simple, super tender, these ribs still have a bite to it. I like for my meat to have a bite to it, meaning that there's a pull. It doesn't just fall off the bone. I'm not a fan of fall off the bone meat. I like to bite my meat off the bone. But I said all that to say, people have certain preferences in terms of the tenderness of the meat. And then some people need the meat to be really, really soft and tender for whatever reasons. If you want it to be as tender as possible, put a lid over the ribs as they're frying. Don't let them just fry in open air. Put a lid over them, and that extra steam that's in the pan while it's frying is going to help you achieve an even more tender fried rib. But y'all, it does not get any better than this. Please drizzle a honey barbecue sauce over it. It's delicious. Come back and let me know what you thought. You won't regret it. It'll be worth the effort, I can assure you that, and your family's gonna love you for it. Thank you all so much for joining me here today for another episode of Keisha's Crumbs. Oh yes,